Hello and welcome to a new video series on the Should I Play This Game YouTube channel. I'm Graham. This video series is tentatively titled, working title you could say, is Solo Factory. It is basically going to be me playing through one of my favourite games of all time at the moment, Satisfactory. The video series hopefully will be every couple of weeks, but it might not be that frequent. It'll just come down to real life and how easy I find to edit videos in Premiere. So don't hold me to that schedule, but that's my plan. A couple of times a month, hopefully. With that out of the way, let's quickly go back in time to a save that's about 270-ish hours ago to what my factory was. I'll then jump forward to my current save, show you what changes I've made to it, and what are my next sort of stages with the build. First things first, I have been playing this game since about March of 2020, I think. It might even be earlier than that now. And I've played over 1,100 hours of it in the current saves. So I've been playing this game a lot. Yeah, and I really like it. So this is a pretty high view of the current main factory. I've got sort of 3 or 4 remote factories, which we'll jump across to through the course of this first video. But this is the main factory. Very top level here, as you can see, or maybe you can see, contains lots of industrial containers. Depending on the particular item stored, the number in those containers sort of varies a fair bit, depending on how many each inventory slot stacks to. This whole section is quite dramatically different in my current save, which, as I said, I'll jump to in a moment. But just want to show you this is what the main factory looks like. We'll go into there and under that first layer and first level in a bit. But over here is where I started to build a battery farm with the massive power that can be produced in this game. Up there in the distance, I'm just going to photo mode and zoom in. Sitting there is 24 nuclear generators. Each generator produces about 2,500 megawatts of power. So sitting there is about 30,000 megawatts of power. Excess power that's not being consumed by the various machines you've got on your factory can be stored in batteries. So if there's an issue with your power at any point in the future, the factory keeps running as long as you've got battery stored. And that's what this is. The idea behind this was to get a big battery farm together in order so that I could actually have a rebuild of this section of this whole power generation process or section, and not have the factory go offline while I was doing it, because I was going to need it to be rerunning, to keep running, so I could produce the materials I needed to actually do that build. And I'll jump into the current save where that is mostly done. And this battery farm is significantly bigger, and I'll show you what that looks like when we get into the next save, because it is essentially done. So let's jump into this factory. So having played Satisfactory, I haven't known much about it. It is a automation factory building game. You have raw materials like iron ore and coal, etc., and you turn those in using manufacturing machines. You turn those into other components and other items, and then use those items combined with other items to build more items, and the whole thing sort of steamrolls from there and dominoes from there to the point where you're all building a series of multiple items to feed into this space elevator, which you can see in the top right hand corner. I've got phase 4 in progress. I've completed 2 of the 4 items required for that stage. When we jump into the next phase, that's actually been completed, and waiting for the next update to that process within the game from the developer Coffee Stain Studios. So if we jump down to this next level, you'll see there are a lot of machines running here. So you've got a series of different types of machines. You've got manufacturers. They allow up to 4 inputs, all from conveyor belts. And this particular one is making adaptive control units. And you can see from this, you've got a set of input requirements in terms of the actual material, the actual item itself, and the number required to make the output over here, which is 2 control units. needs 15 automated wiring, 10 circuit boards, 10 heavy modular frame, and 2 computers. You can put those in, you get 2 adaptive control units, and it takes 48 seconds to make one of those. This machine is very under spec at the moment, and I'll explain why in a moment. In the next video, I'm pretty sure I've fixed this issue, because it's not getting enough of these in a quick enough manner to make this 100% efficient. It needs 18.75 a minute. You can see hasn't got enough here. So as that sits there waiting for that to go down, the efficiency goes down. These power shards, which is what these things are, allow you to increase the rate of output of your machines at the expense of a pretty significant bump up in the power that's required to run the machine. So let's keep going through. So we've got a whole series of items been made here. This is actually where the automated wiring's been made, which is required by those two. That's been made there. The machines can have a couple of different states by this yellow icon, the coloured icon on the top there, or coloured pole. That means that machine is running, not necessarily 100% efficiency, but is currently making something. If it goes into if it's white like these ones are, that means it's currently running and it is overclocked. This one up to 200%. So it's creating 10 a minute. And you can see here we've got pretty good input of our 30 per minute steel pipes and 80 per minute wire. And it's running 100%. That's really good. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them running at 100 at double speed. And if you look at each one of them, they're running all 100%. So if you combine all the outputs here, 10 a minute times 6, we're making 60 a minute. As a part of this video series, I also explain some of the mods I use. One of those is this efficiency checker hand tool, which is really good. You point it at a belt, and it will tell you what its maximum capacity that the connected machines can make, and ultimately what that series of belts then connects to, what those connected machines require as well. So you can see we've got green across the board here. We've got input 60. We're limited to 60 because there are some Mark 1 belts in here. Mark 1 belts are limited by how much they can... their throughput is limited to 60 per minute. The belt I've got here in front of me is a Mark 5 belt. That can do 780. So suppose the same. We've got a limit of 60 per minute, which is not a problem for this particular requirement because the output also is required is 60. So that one's basically running as required, perfectly efficiency, at least for the stator component of what's required, where that goes. That might be going to another machine that needs something else, which might not be running 100%. So that'll depend on the other machine. If a machine's got a yellow pole like that one, that means it is currently not producing something. And that could be for a couple of reasons. It could be because it's not got the right inputs here, or in this case it is because, if I wait that one, there's one there, it's yellow, it's because the output is full, and that's the maximum that particular item can stack to is 50. And because I haven't got where that item ultimately goes to, is not using that machine at the rate this is outputting at, the items start to back up on the belts, as you can see here. Sorry, other end, that's where the machine items come out. They come out of that machine, they go into a merger, which joins the output from that machine into another output, which is combined with this machine, and vice versa, and then ultimately it goes up a conveyor belt lifter and into a set of storage containers. If I press the F key, which is the default key for dismantle, I can highlight all of these containers, and we can see that we've got 40,800 motors sitting in there. And if we were there to go to look at the output of this one, which I think is on this side, yep, we click on that. It needs 20 a minute, and I'm making 25 a minute. So therefore, there's going to be 5%. There's 5 more than needed. So that's why the belts are starting to stack up and back up like they are. Okay, so basically the whole bunch of machines here. Turbo motors been made, been stored into there. through into this one. So they've been made by a manufacturer here at 3.75 a minute. So this is essentially what this main factory floor is just a series of machines of different types. That's manufacturers. We've got these assemblers, which take 2 inputs. And we've also got constructors, another type of machine, which basically take one item, one input, and create one item from it. For example, this is taking aluminium ingots and is creating aluminium casings from it. What else have we got machine-wise? This is a blender. This is a sort of like an equivalent of a manufacturer, but actually allows 2 liquid-based inputs. And this is actually making cooling systems. And is taking fluid from nitrogen gas, which actually is coming from a machine over there, and is water. And if I jump down to here and just flow down for a bit, that's where our water extraction machine is coming from. We're going through a series of pipes, we feed it into the machine here. So this machine, this area just makes a lot of different items. So we've got reinforced iron plates being made here through that series of machines. We've got this set of machines making screws at a fairly significant rate, making 600 a minute through that set of machines. The recipes that we've got here, so this one's using iron ingots to come out to make screws. Takes 5 ingots to make 20 screws, and it makes 50 screws a minute. There are alternative recipes you can also have for this, which can be more efficient, but in other words, they might make more a minute, but require higher input requirements, etc. like that. So you have a sort of bit of a balancing out between the way you want to balance your factory in that respect. Here we've got more ingots being made, and these have been fed into these constructors, which are making iron rods. And again, that's then going into a series of storage containers up here. I'm using these display signs to remember what I've got in some of these storage containers. I sometimes just forget what I've got where. And there's a series of things being made here. So where some of these raw materials start from, for example, there's a couple of, I believe those are iron deposits there. And you sit on top of those a miner. The deposits come in 3 different types of levels: impure, normal, and pure. And essentially what that means is that depending on the level of the miner you put on it, this is a Mark 1 miner, a Mark 3 miner, the rate of throughput from a Mark 3 miner on a, for example, impure node like this one is at the most can be 300 a minute if you were to use the shards to go up to 300 a minute. If you have a pure node, or sorry, a normal node, that maximum starts at 240 at 100% and goes up to 600. If you're in a pure node, the base level is 480, and the maximum you can make that output using increasing it to 250% is 1200 per minute. However, as I mentioned earlier, the fastest belt available in the game is only a Mark 5 at 780. So that's something I think they're going to hopefully balance in the next game. Maybe, I don't think they're going to make faster belts, but they may have a miner that's maybe got 2 outputs, for example, and you might be able to then take full advantage of that maximum speed of that belt, of that miner on a pure node. So let's just jump to another part of my factory. I've got a bit of a storage set up here behind my main area. In terms of what we've got here, we've got what's known as a MAM, which is the molecular analysis machine, which allows you to research bits and concepts within features within the game, and most of these are all 100%. This is part of a mod I've got, which is the suit I'm currently wearing. There's a bit of a limitation with the suits. You have a regular vanilla game. Without the mods, you've got a hazmat suit, which protects you from hazardous materials, like uranium and some toxic gases. You've also got a set of blade runners, which allows you to run very fast. And you've also got a hover pack, which actually uses power from your grid to allow you to sort of hover around. Unfortunately, you can't combine any of those three together, so you can only wear one at a time, which I think is a bit limiting. So I've got into a module called the Power Suit, which allows me to combine a bunch of those things together, so I can fly. And I've also got hazardous material protection as well, all into the one suit, and I can run pretty quick as well. You can actually see a speed in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm currently running at 39 meters per second. This save was when I was doing a Christmas part of the Christmas sort of DLC kind of thing that the game does, and that's a Christmas tree that I built. Again, it had a resourcing process to it. You had to get tree branches from particular trees, turn them into different materials to then make that. So obviously in the next save, that's all been dismantled. So I've also got another mod that allows me to teleport from location to location. Actually, I'll just look at this quickly. This is a power checker that I've got, yet another mod, which lets me that I've got a current capacity of power being made in the entire factory of just over 65,000 megawatts. I'm currently using, it varies, but around the 24,000 megawatts. I've got 34,800 megawatt hours stored in batteries. And we've got a bit of the maximum is how much the factory would use if every machine was running 100%, which, as we've seen already in my little bit, there's a little bit so far, is not the case. And that basically is the spare is what's left, basically the back capacity minus the maximum gives me a spare of just under 33,000. When you look at the current save, that is very much dramatically increased due to the generators I've now constructed. We'll go to that section last because that's one that's going to have the biggest change when we look at the next save. I'm going to go to my remote factory, which is this one here. This is actually the first remote factory I actually built in the game many hours ago. The reason I built it here was I required rubber to be made and I required plastics to be made. And they are required as a base component to start with oil. And there's 1, 2, and a third oil deposit just there beneath me. And there's also another one that I'm not actually using. I think it's just there. I've since stopped in this particular save. I actually stopped making rubber and plastic because I actually had way too much of it, and just wasn't using it at a rate that made any sense. So I've stopped producing it. Again, the current save has actually got this manufacturing back and running again. So that's what this main factory was. Autosave's going to kick in a second. That'll basically freeze the game for a couple of seconds while it does it. This is where I'm making aluminium ingots. So just hover up here and the game will freeze. This is making aluminium ingots. Again, this has been slightly rejigged in the current save because, again, in this particular save I was actually making way too much for what I required. So again, I had too much going to the storage and just wasn't using it at a rate that was sort of balancing it out too much. Or wasn't balancing it out properly. That is a drone port that is bringing in materials from another location, another drone port. Flies into here, drops it off, it goes out this conveyor belt, and that actually joins what was the original plastic conveyor belt that runs all the way through here, all the way along there, past that, and it ultimately gets back into the main factory where it was being stored in this save it's been stored in a series of industrial containers. Again, in the current save that has changed quite dramatically. That's all the ingots. They're refineries. They've got the ability to have one conveyor belt input and a liquid input. This one requires bauxite, which actually comes down through that big thing up through there because there's a bauxite deposit on the top of that hill there, top of that little mountain. And it also requires water being fed by these series of extractors over here. And there's 6 refineries here, all of them making aluminium solution and silica. And then the aluminium solution is fed into these set of refineries, which also require coal, which has been fed from the very far end of this factory, coming through a series of belts along through there. That makes aluminium scrap, which is then joined with the silica to make the ingots down in here. That was my suit actually overheating. the bottom left-hand corner, you've got a number that's creeping up. It's going 8%, 9%. It regenerates over time. But if the power suit goes down, all of the protection and all the features of it are disabled while it reboots. So if I do that inside in an area where the uranium radiation being given off, I will start taking damage. Okay, so I'm just going to go to my next factory, which is the desert plastics area, which is this one. This actually area of the map is going to be changed quite dramatically in the next update that's currently slated for June. So this factory, I believe, is going to be... I'm going to have to either completely dismantle it before that and move it, or I'm not too sure what I'm going to do yet. That'll be part of this video series, is going through my response to that changes. We don't know what the changes are specifically at the moment. They haven't actually revealed them yet. I suspect they'll go into... They've got so Coffee Stone Studios have an experimental branch for this game, and I suspect I'll be able to jump into there once update 6 is released, and look at the change they've made to this area to see what I've got to do in this particular save, which is on the standard early access branch, to make the changes while they work through any bug fixes from that update before they release into the early access. This entire section is just making plastic. Again, it's another one that required oil. So there's a couple of oil deposits underneath here, and a bit of water as well. All of this makes, as I said, makes plastic. This all goes to a particular area of the factory, so it's not going to the main factory. It goes to another area altogether, which will be the next stop in this little tour. Each of these machines, each of the refineries which are making... So if we go back to the actual one making the... So we've come out of... The oil comes out of here. Is fed into these sets of refineries, which is making the plastic. Has this as an offshoot. I don't want that particularly. I made these refineries to make this product. This is sort of another sort of part of it. I'm feeding that. All of those 5 are feeding to this particular refinery, which is making fuel, which is feeding these sets of fuel generators, and they are also feeding into the main factory, which is why I've got sort of 65,000 and a half in actual production, because these guys are sort of combining these ones, and there's a whole series down the end there. There's more there, and there's another half dozen or so, or maybe more, maybe 10 or so down the end of this factory as well. There is, and that's the train station, which is actually where the plastic is going. So we're going to go to the other end of this train line in a moment. But yeah, another set of refineries here making more plastic. Another set of refineries making plastic, and there's another set of 5 on the other side. All of them are feeding a set of fuel generators, which is where I'm sort of getting that 5,000 or 5,500 or so above what the nuclear generators are putting out, which is 30,000. Alright, so let's look at this train. So we'll go to the other end. This is now the desert factory, which is where these plastics end up. So the plastic comes in here from that other factory. If you look at a map, it's actually, we were just here. So it's coming, the train is just there, the one coming back, so it comes through here, sneaks right through here and comes into here. That's feeding these sets of assemblers, which is making, along with copper sheet, is making circuit boards, which are then fed into these sets of 3 manufacturers, which are making computers. And all these are running 100% efficient. They're then fed into this series of containers here. All of these are basically full. And they've also got what's just sitting here is an awesome sink. Explain what you can... This is producing a sort of an in-game currency called coupons, which you can use to buy things from the awesome shop. Basically, this is a merger, so it takes these 3 outputs from these 3 manufacturers, merge them into one, feeds it into here. This is what's known as a smart splitter, and it's programmed to split to the right to send the computers to the right. To the right. If there's any overflow, in other words, if this starts to back up because these containers get full, they'll start feeding to the left and get fed into the awesome sink. The reason why you do that is so if you don't do that, these machines, this belt backs up, these belts back up, the belts into the machine start backing up, and then they start back up inside here and start stacking inside here. These machines then stop. That then feeds into these machines, then stop because of the exact same reason. Everything just sort of stops because it sort of snowballs back like that. So by doing this, you keep all these machines running, which is what you want to do because that keeps all the input stuff and the actual machines themselves running efficiently. Have a series of coal generators here. These were built before I had the big nuclear generators. This was just used to power these sets of machines here and here only. Really don't need it anymore, but I've kept them because I don't really need to have a reason to get rid of them per se. This set of generators, this set of manufacturers is building heavy modular frames. This is another classic example. These are all backed up, as you can see. These containers are all full. Therefore, they've started to back up on the belts. Therefore, them backed up into the machines themselves. The output stacks are also now completely full, so the machines completely stop. That then feeds into all the manufacturing process to feed these machines have also stopped. Everything here is completely stopped because the final output of those manufacturers is completely backed up. All these machines here is all built to feed those 6 manufacturers. In the next save, I've done a very similar thing. What I showed you with the computers there. I've got them going into an awesome sink, and these things are all running 100%. All right. So all this, as I said, this is all making steel ingots to make various pipes, which are fed into these manufacturers to all make those heavily modular frames. Over here, we've got another train station, which is taking a set of coal to the next factory, which we'll go to, which is just through there. You can sort of see over there in the distance. And this is where I'm making electromagnetic rods and a couple of other bits and pieces. So we've actually got 2 freight platforms here. Not using one at the moment, but yeah, it's got 2 freight platforms, so that's loading it into that train. And we'll just use the teleporter to jump to the end of the coal line, which is, so now we were just over there. Now we're at the end of that coal line. It comes into here, and we'll go into a couple of different places. I did have a series of generators here when I first built this area to power this stuff, but I've now joined up to the main grid, so it's being powered by those nuclear generators. And I'm actually having disconnected those generators because I needed the coal that they use. They're all coal generators. So over here, we've got a series of machines, a whole platform of machines that is making electromagnetic rods. Electromagnetic rods are used in the production of the uranium fuel rods that go into the nuclear generators. How they get there is, how they get to those nuclear generators is by that drone port just there. So they actually feed up from here into that drone port, into that series of containers, then into the drone port. But we'll jump around there in a second. I'm also making just down there, which you can't really see, is a lot of there's also a lot of aluminium being made here as well. So here's all making aluminium ingots that then get made into aluminium alclad sheeting. Some of those aluminium alclad sheetings fed into here to make heat sinks, which is required as a part of the nuclear generation power generation. So if we come down here, there's actually a set of levels of this factory under here. Under here, this is repeating that same aluminium ingot setup I showed you in that very first remote factory we went to. This here is making batteries. Batteries are required to power, amongst other things, but the main thing they're used for is to power the drones. The drones require batteries to take off, fly to their destination and return. So I've got a couple of drones around the drone ports around the place. So they're making batteries to go into those drone ports. So here is a series of yeah, machines that are making those electromagnetic rods. They're making copper sheets. Over here's a set of things making copper Caterin wire. This is making AR limiters. This whole setup over here, sort of here, is making stators. Again, combine those with AR limiters, and you get electromagnetic rods. We're making 40 a minute to feed the nuclear generators manufacturing process, and also they're also required in the waste management process of the generators, which we're now going to jump up to the next platform, the next factory. Whoops. A lot of these factories I build, like these massive areas, I have a bit of a design philosophy that each floor is 4 walls high. So if I do that, that's 4 walls high. So each level is at least 4 or a multiplication of 4, 4, 8, 12, etc. And then I try and build those levels, the floors of the factory like that. A lot of factories are not sort of, quote unquote finished. That's part of the current save, is to sort of make the factories a little bit more, the factory buildings a bit more cosmetically pleasing, you could say. At the moment, it's more of a function over form at the moment. While I was getting through the phases of the space elevator phases, and now I'm in more of a holding pattern on that perspective, because there's nothing more to do while they're between updates. So at the moment, it's a bit of a putting more a bit of a cosmetic look onto some of the machines and the factory areas. Which this one will be changed quite dramatically. This one I may just get rid of all that, dismantle the whole lot, and make this factory a little bit more contained to the actual footprint it actually takes up. As again, I haven't really decided what to do with some of these areas. Alright, let's jump to the last area, which is where all the generators are. When you get into the generators, you'll start to see the radiation in this bottom left-hand corner start to go up, because I'm going to be affected by it. There'll also be a in-game indicator as well, radiation level right in the middle. It's not affecting me that much. The actual mod returns a 3.36%. If I was to actually pick up something that's radioactive, that would jump to 100%, and that white bar there in where those filters are, they would go down rather quickly. Okay, so let's actually come back a bit, and here we can actually see this in a bit more fuller view. Alright, so we have 2 levels of generators here. So there's 24 in total. They're each divided into sets of 6 on each floor. As each of those set of 6 output their waste, because each of these machines is producing waste coming out of here, 10 a minute. So if you, again, I should have said at the bin, this game involves maths, so apologies. So each of these machines is outputting 10 per minute of waste. So the 6 combined do 60 a minute. That 60 minute of waste is fed into this set of machines here. 2 blenders, a particle accelerator, which look pretty cool when they're in action. Just land on this blender. They do this sparking stuff, which looks pretty cool. Which is then they're creating plutonium pellets, which are then fed into this assembly at the back here, combined with concrete to make encased plutonium cells, which fed into this manufacturer, along with steel beams, more electromagnetic control rods, and heat sinks to make plutonium fuel rods. Now, I'm not actually needing them, because I'm creating uranium fuel rods to feed the generators. This has been made to feed into a awesome sink, which I think is on the top level. Let me just jump up there. So another set of exact same setup here as well, which is taking the waste output from the 6 on this end, and that there is, I believe that's the animal manufacturer. Somewhere I've got an awesome sink. Ah, there it is. And that's taking the plutonium fuel rods that have been made by this manufacturer, the manufacturer at that end, the one at the top there, and the other one at that end, and is creating out of them is building up our coupons. This is basically the way you get rid of the nuclear waste. If you don't do that, and you don't do anything about it, the only option is you have to somehow store it. And if far into this factory, that by the way is a series of pipes which feed water is required to feed into the nuclear generators. That's a set of pipes feeding the top 12 generators. Underneath here is where I was storing nuclear waste. You can see now up to 100% intensity of the radiation poisoning. This is basically an area that I was using to store the waste until I came up with the waste, the process to actually get rid of the waste. We'll jump into the next save and I'll show you what's happened to this setup. But I had a setup here that is just doing what those previous ones were doing, but it's all double capacity. So everything's doubled up what the other one setup is doing to get through the waste quicker. In fact, between now and the next save, I actually built this setup again in the gap on this side to again get through it, just to get through it quicker. Those set of water extractors feed into those pipes I was showing you earlier. So if I just put my head up through here, pipes going up the wall there, across there, doing that kink. All those pipes go into there. This area has seen the most change. I'm just going to jump into water here. Actually looks pretty neat under here. You can't do anything underwater, by the way. It's just there for visual. Oh, I'm now being rebooted. My factory's gone down. My foot's gone down. So I've just taken a bit of damage while that was happening. I'll just slowly float up to the surface again. This whole area is the one has probably seen the most change. And as I said, we'll jump into the new save in a moment, in a second, and I'll show you the changes done to this area and the main factory. The other areas we've been to haven't changed that much, but the main factory floor has changed quite a fair bit, and so has this area. All right, I just need to get to a teleporter, so I'm going to teleport back to the main hub, and I'll show you the awesome shop, and then we'll jump into the next save, and I'll show you what this factory now looks like nearly 300 hours later. So you can imagine a fair bit's changed. So we'll just go back to the hub. And as you can imagine, the radiation's got. There's actually a bug in this game. If you sometimes pick up some radiation materials and then move out of a radiated area, the radiation stays with us. It's a bug. It's easy enough. You just got to save the game and then save the game and then restart. Open up your save again, and that bug is then resets correctly. Just wait till this autosave kicks in. There it goes. This autosave freezes the entire game for a couple of seconds. Actually, got to freeze the state of everything to know what all the state of the machines are at, what's on the belts, etc. So this game is pretty intensive on the GPU. I've got a 1080 Super, and we are getting, just to give you an idea, we are getting just really subtle. You're just seeing the top little green numbers there, just below the completed phase. There's an FPS count. It's at just around the 45. You can get into the 50s and 60s. Sometimes it'll go as low as the 30s. I think the main thing this game is because of the simulation required. It's fairly CPU intensive. So yeah, that's where I think most of the bottleneck might be in my particular machine. I've got 35 coupons already in my little storage unit here. Use these to buy things like these are part of the game. These are being produced by. These are not mods you're seeing here. These are all building cosmetic stuff you can do. So we've got frames, concrete pillars. There's organisation. The signs I was showing you, they're in here as well. Some lights. I don't have any lights to show you. I'll do in the next save. So you can buy that sort of stuff through the awesome shop. You can also just buy straight up parts. You can buy cables. You can buy wire if you need to. I've got more than enough of that, so I don't need to use the shop to buy that stuff. We've got the MAM here. This is the hub. This is the main point you come back to. You've got a crafting bench built into it, which allows you to manually craft bits and pieces, items in here. You've also got the hub terminal, which is where you would actually work through the tiers of the game, 0 to 8. 0 is basically a tutorial hub, tutorial tier. 1 through to 4 and 5 and 6 just added in logistics, Mark 1 stuff. There's a level 2, I think that introduced Mark 2. That's faster belts and faster lifters, as well as things like jump pads, things to get around and stuff like that. Mods also can put their requirements through these tiers. So you can see there's a throughput counter and limiter is under tier 2. So to get this, you need to feed it these materials. Select that milestone. I've got enough plates, I'm going to feed it the 20 plates it requires and the 30 rotors it requires. I can then push this button to launch the pod, and that then literally launches this thing out of the hub. That then goes up to somewhere up there in the sky, way there into the sky, and then comes back again to then allow you to choose your next milestone you want to do and progress through the game, the sort of progression through that way. Here is a equipment workshop. This is where you sort of build your sort of personal based stuff. So in here we can see we've got the various Blade Runners. These Blade Runners Mark 2, 3, 4. That's a mod that made faster Blade Runners. So Blade Runners here, hazmat suit, hover pack are all made through the equipment workshop. And that is the little pod coming back. Alright, that's basically sums up the save as it was 300 or so hours ago. I'm now going to jump forward into the new save, and I'll show you all the differences and what are my next plans for the factory in terms of redesign, laying out the factory differently, etc., etc. While I'm in this sort of limbo sort of land process between updates, etc. So I'll be back in a new save in a moment. It's now roughly 300 hours beyond the save we're looking at in the first part of this video. I didn't realise I'd be talking for nearly 40 minutes on that first section, so this video is a bit longer than I thought it was going to be. So I'm just going to show you the differences between this save and the next one. Obviously, I'm not going to go through every area because a lot of it's you've seen it all before kind of thing. The main difference is, so over there is my big battery farm. We'll go look at that in a moment and more closer up. This is the big difference though. This is the main factory floor, main factory. As you can see, all of those storage units have been, basically, most of them been removed. I've now got a big central storage tower. See, all the various machines now that we're producing into those storage containers are now feeding up through the middle, up through here, into a series of containers at the top. And each of those containers has a single item in it each. So across the top we've got encased industrial beams, which are actually made over there somewhere, just underneath there. We've got reinforced plates, electromagnetic field generator. You can also notice in the top right hand corner it says objective complete phase 5s, and there's nothing for me to do because they've not put phase 5 into the game yet. Phase 5 would be the phase to feed that thing. Again, more stuff on this side, radar control units, smart plating, etc. And I can easily walk up to any of these machines and just pick up off there what I need. If I need it in bulk, I walk up and I've got the bulk storage there. So what's happening underneath here? So underneath here is what we sort of call is a logistics level. So each of those machines, up through the middle, this big tower in the middle here. In fact, I'll just dismantle a floor panel here and we'll just go underneath. So you can see I've got some glass walls in the way here. So all the materials come in from various levels, from underneath here. Some come from even further down, but they come in through here. Just turn on the flashlight. And they come up through these conveyor belt lifters that take them all the way to the very top. They then go through all these mergers, merge them all together and take them up through one belt, through one each side. Up through here. We've got an awesome sink in the middle. I'll explain why that's there in a moment. To the top here. And they go through each of these series of incoming belts here, they then get split through smart splitters along the smart splitter I'm sitting on into another smart splitter that splits them into the appropriate container. Each of these smart splitters here, one there for example, for some reason it's not letting me select. Yep, there we go, smart splitter. The plastic goes into that container. That is currently full, so it's overflowing into this one through that output, which is then being fed into a merger underneath here. Each of these is then merging all into one big stream. So if you go around the corner, all of them leading to the same belt run to come out through this gap here, and they're all fed into the awesome sink. So everything here has been ultimately fed into an awesome sink once the container is full. Some of these aren't being manufactured anymore. Most of them are, but some aren't. So if I walk up to one of these and take something out of it, within probably half hour or so, it'll be full again, sort of thing, because the manufacturer is still making it. So it's sort of nothing goes to waste at the moment. Just put that floor back in before I forget. That one there is the start of the next tower. At the moment, it's just got iron plates in it, which were being made by that set. I'm going to be feeding into it probably, I'm thinking either the copper sheets from this set and the wire from here will feed into it as well. There's one over here being made. That's got 6 channels in it. That's got 6. That's got 12. I think it's got 36 in it, or 30 something. It's got 12 down one side, 12 down the other side, and then 2 sets of, it must be 36. Again, I said maths is in this game, sorry. So again, we're going to feed a series of these options. We'll feed into that one, and then that's going to be there. Likewise over there, we've got another container tower a storage tower over there. The idea behind it ultimately is that I'm going to lay out the factory, because if I jump down here to this level, this is where all the main machines are. I'm going to be changing this layout quite significantly to feed into as a more streamlined manner into these towers, because to get them into the towers as they currently stand, it's a bit of a mess under here, and it takes a lot of going through, crossing over and under and over and that sort of stuff. It's just not very efficient. It's not very clean, and it just doesn't really work. So the idea is going to be that we'll end up making the machines output and going on a single conveyor line, multiples potentially, and then feeding into that central tower I showed you earlier, to make it just a little bit neater and a bit cleaner in terms of what's on these various floors. And then ultimately it may end up putting more actual machines on the top level, which was previously just used for storage. And again, just excuse me, just to make the factory a little bit cleaner and a bit easier to look at, and to also maintain and know where the hell things are running from, because it's a bit all over the place. So that's that one. Let's go look at the battery farm, which has got 5 levels. Each level contains 400 batteries. I'll get closer to it. You'll start to build in the interior. There it goes. So each level is 400 batteries. So I now have, we go to the power checker, I now have 234,000 megawatt hours of, I think the game's about to crash on me. Yep, I think it's about to crash. Yep, it's crashed. Alright, sorry about that, folks. Yeah, early access. It crashed on me as I just went to EF edit on this power checker. I won't do it again. I actually don't need to. You can actually see there that I've got 234,800 megawatt hours of battery storage. Most of that is stored in this little battery farm here. So I've got glass down the side. I think this looks really neat. You've got lights across the top. There are 400 batteries per level. So it goes 200 by 20 by 20 grid. And yeah, so I've got little staircases in each of these corners here, so this just repeats itself Another level of 400 batteries. This is probably my first attempt at doing a bit of form and function, sort of form over function, in terms of making it look sort of neat. I'm actually really happy how it turned out. I like the glass, the lights inside it is really cool. And go around this corner here, we've got another level here. And this is actually the final level. Obviously, building the way I have got more ability. I can build another level, no problem at all. If I need more batteries, I can. I probably don't need to, so I may end up building a smaller level on top and just making some sort of roof structure. But the idea behind this was just to give me enough battery power so that I could redo the generator section and not have my factory completely stop while that work was going. So we'll jump to that section towards the end. Alright, just got to get down. Yeah, jump down this one. And we're now out. So yeah, the big change here was getting rid of all of those storage containers on the top and putting them into those storage towers, and to start implementing the usage of the awesome sink to keep the factory going. So you can now see that the maximum power usage is now into the 54,000 and the consumption is in 45. And I've not made any new machines here, so it's really just making them always running is been the main difference for that. We'll quickly go through the other machines. There's been very little change at the. There's been a little bit of change at the what was the very first factory we went to before. So as I said, I have actually resurrected the plastic and rubber production, but I'm now feeding them into power field generators. So it's rubber's feeding to rubber being made here. Oops. Again, outputting heavy oil residue is been feeding to these couple of refineries to make the fuel to feed these 6 or so fuel generators. Again, I've got an awesome sink here which is taking overflow from the ingot production. So that was that big change. We will go and have a look. There's been no change in the desert factory really, and there's been no change anywhere else. The only change I have made, and it wasn't actually a change in actual layout or anything, it's just that I'm now making significantly more electromagnetic rods. I'm now actually making, if I get my efficiency tool out, I'm now actually making 88 a minute. I'm actually technically making 90, so I've actually basically doubled the production of this whole setup. That was quite an effort because I needed to really feed it a lot more base materials. Looks like I've actually got a problem there. I don't have any stators going in, so I've got an issue there I need to look at. So yeah, it's doubled the wire production that was needed. It's doubled the pipe production. Everything's basically doubled and a bit more in order to produce 80, technically 90, but 88 electromagnetic rods a minute going into that setup, which goes to the generator area, and 2 a minute here, which is actually fed into a train station just over there. That train actually goes to the main, my main base, the main factory, and is used to feed into I think they're used to make the batteries, if I recall. But it looks like the big area, the big change is in the generator area. So I'm just going to jump to, where am I going to jump to there? This was where the generators were. So they've all been removed. For the most part, all of them have been removed. Some of the stuff is still retaining. I haven't completely dismantled the entire setup yet, because that is now the new setup. So just over there, we've now got 48 nuclear generators, all enclosed in an enclosed building. And I've got one bit of glass there. You can see them all there. I've put some lights inside there so you can actually sort of see them. Oh, by the way, I've actually got a mod turned on that is actually... Oops. I've got a mod turned on that makes it the daytime all the time. If you look at the top of the centre of the screen, you've got left to right, you've got a session time of 6 minutes, in-game time of 12 o'clock, and a real time, actual time in real life of 12:30, of just before 20 to 2. So 48 generators inside here, 4 rows of 12. Just get to the end here. So 4 rows of 12. So all the stuff on the right, to my right, is the actual production that feeds into these generators. So these are all help makes the fuel rods, these uranium fuel rods, the actual production of which is on the next level. These are 15 blenders which help make the encased uranium cells. Again, that's all used on the top. So as a result of having to do with this, this section has gone through a lot of changes. I think I've got enough to get to the top. I do. Under here is a logistics level. So this is all where everything comes in. All the fuel rods are underneath here being fed into the machines from the top. The waste comes from the machines to the generators up into here as well and is fed to down to the far end of this whole section. Which is where I'm now going to go to. I just have to go slowly because I've got not much percentage left on my suit, 2%, and I can actually run down here quickly because there's not much uranium. Just got to be careful. So you can see the waste coming out there. You can see the waste going along there. So basically, the rods come from sort of the end that's now behind me, and feed through the machine, through this floor, and feed down as required. Through what's known as a manifold setup. I'll show you one of those in action. You've got 2 types of ways you can feed into machines. You've got manifold or load balancing. Oops, I need to come up there. So now at the other end of the machine, all this setup. So now at the other end. All this is just manufacturing items for all of this stuff. You can see there's 4 sets of waste management, I guess you might say, set up. So again, 2 blenders using the waste. So the waste from each line of 12 comes up through here, goes through that sort of multi-split merge process to balance it a bit differently between machine this one requires and what that requires. This is repeated 4 times, and this is getting rid of all of the nuclear waste from those sets of 48 generators. Occasionally this process just doesn't quite work properly and everything starts to bank back up a bit. So as a result of that, I've actually got a set of machines which actually replicates that entire setup just here. Again, this is just to manually feed from a series of containers into a set of the same setup over here. It's balanced a bit differently, but it's essentially doing the same thing, because just there is the awesome sink, which is getting all the inputs from those things, plus coming up through that belt there and lift there is the excess uranium rods, because I'm also sinking those. So this is all just making uranium plutonium fuel rods which are going straight into that sink over there. So this whole section is just to do with waste management, nuclear waste disposal, I guess you could call it, to turn into something that doesn't just accumulate over time. There are 18 manufacturers sitting up here, which is all making these nuclear fuel rods that are down there. You can see there's the belt down there. Again, I'm making way more than I need, so I'm also then, as I said earlier, I'm sinking them into here. I believe it's sinking to that one or that one. Can't remember where I'm sinking them now. But under here, you can see they're all overclocked to 200%, making 0.8 a minute. And for the most part, they're pretty much on track in terms of running 100% efficiency. occasionally they run out because they run out of the encased uranium cells because the blenders downstairs aren't quite 100% collectively. Some are, some aren't, so they end up with being a little bit less in some cases. So I think they're probably running at like 95, 98% efficiency kind of thing. So occasionally one or two of them drops down. It doesn't actually matter because I need only 9.6 emitted on my crating. Overall, I'm actually got a maximum output of 14.4. So even if I have a couple of these running a little bit less than 100%, it's not going to affect the ability to feed those generators. Everything here needs, we've got these manufacturers to make these rods out of the waste, needs steel beams and heat sinks. Electromagnetic rods, they come in from a drain port over the far end there. Let's just come through here. So there's a series of drain ports there. That one is the one for the electromagnetic rods. That one is uranium, because these the blenders below require uranium to function. It's one of their ingredients. And the left-hand one there is heat sinks, which are coming from that other factory, one of the main remote factories. And this feeds into a series of containers, which are then fed down the far side of this whole level, which then individually feeds those sets of manufacturers. So here we've got, comes out here, we've got that one is feeding the, that I believe is feeding the that's the beams. This split one is feeding the heat sinks, and the last one is feeding the control rods, and these two are the final requirement, which is the encased cells come from those two assemblers. So basically that is what's known as a manifold. If I just get back up here and show you, it's got a line and it just splits off as needed. It's got benefit because it takes up less space. However, one sort of negative of it, at least initially, is that because of the way the splitters work, they split. There's no you can't manage how it splits. So the materials come in and they just split through whatever's output. They're connected in order. So it'd split to the left, then to the right, then left, right, overall. It just does that continuously. What that ultimately means, though, is by the time you get down to the end here, because it does it in order and knows what each splitter does, what state each splitter's in terms of it's got to go left or right in this case, it can take 3 or 4 actual input materials to get down to the frame. Once it's split left, gone through, then split again after that one. Next one comes through, it might split that way because it's due to. Next one comes straight through. This one then splits straight, it goes straight ahead. Then the same thing happens. So it can be a little bit, can take a bit of time for the machines at the far end of a manifold to actually start getting the materials fed into them so they can run 100%, which this is now running 99%, close enough. So that's the downside of a manifold. But if you've got materials to sort of seed into those far end machines, you can sort of mitigate that sort of delay a bit. Again, this is another set of manifold setups. That's a good example of it. Goes around through there. So you can see here, this has got multiple splits in here. So if you've got one coming in, it'll go into the first one and go left. Second one comes in and goes right. Third one goes in left again. Fourth one goes straight through, and that all sort of. So you know, it can take a bit of time for a material to actually finally get through all those splits and get to the very last machine in line. So all of the materials come in through one belt run down here, through here. So we've got 4 lots of limestone on the inside, because a lot of this material requires making of concrete, or as its base requirement. Sulfur, that goes down this side and go down the far end of the factory, this particular area, and feed into those refineries in there, that goes into those blenders. Coal and iron ore, they're used to make the steel ingots required to make the beams required for those manufacturers. Here's the raw uranium that's going down to that far end following that. So it took a fair bit of rerouting to get all this to sort of function properly. And underneath this section, jump down through here, if I can jump through there, and we'll jump through here, is the 48 water extractors which are needed to feed each. There's a water extractor per generator. Each of them are running at 250% clock speed to produce 300 a minute, because each one of these needs 300 cubic meters, not that that's really a thing, of water. And that just goes down through that set of 12 pipes, goes all the way down the bottom. The first sort of row, the first set of 6 feed the first set and just break off as required, and the outside right set of 6 essentially feed the far end set of 6 generators and split off as required into here. And we've got lights on the inside so you can sort of see what we're doing. So this is essentially running. It's up and running. It's all 100%. Each of these generators are set of producing 2,500 each. So collectively, these 48 generators are producing 120,000 megawatts collectively. Combine that with the other fuel generators, etc., running, we've now got an actual capacity in the network of 128,000 or so capacity of our generators, which is about 3 times more than I need in most cases. I've got a power switch here. It actually allows me to turn off, disconnect this set of 12 generators from the rest of the grid. So if I was to do that off and jump back to here, jump back to that one, for example, we're now down to 97. So I've actually just disconnected 30,000 megawatts of power by doing that. So that's now back on. So this building is not actually finished yet. You might have noticed on the front of the building I had a series of glass windows, etc. So the next part of this building is to make it a bit more cosmetic. Before I do that, however, I've got to repath these belts. 3 of them are taking rubber, plastic and aluminium ingots to the far factory, and one is bringing quartz to that factory over there. We're going to reroute those 4 belts. The other ones just aren't used at the moment. They're from previous setups. I'm going to reroute them, and I'm going to put them, at least initially, I'm going to route them through the top of that platform there. I haven't got enough juice to get to the top, so that's where the plan is to put them. So the next set of videos will be going through that process and sort of the associated sort of work around doing that. Then the next step will be to make this into an enclosed building. So you can see I've got sort of walls here. So that's going to come forward to the end of that building and come down there. We've got glass in here, so I'm going to move the whole wall's going to come out. Excuse me. Just wait this autosave. Then we're going to put some more lights in the into the factory, inside the factory, especially the end where those water extractors are. At the far end, put some lights in so we can see what's going on in that little section. And then enclose the entire thing in a concrete wall. This is actually a steel wall. It's actually got steel in it. Whereas if I come through here, we've actually got what's known as a basic concrete wall, and a new sort of you can actually colour these walls. These concrete walls can actually be coloured. So we're going to do that as well and make it a bit of a nicer colour. So I'm going to put some lights in here. So these are under lights. Probably put more lights inside here. We're going to fix. I've got a level here of. I'm going to fix this input process and to make that a bit neater. As I showed earlier, there's a logistics level in there. We're going to make that properly enclosed, and then build out. All this will be gone because that's all be rerouted. And then this will basically be a self-contained building. Obviously, we'll try and stop wire cables going through the wall like that and make them a bit more neater. Get rid of all this other stuff. All this will go. I'm not too sure what to do yet with these batteries. There's 300 batteries sitting in here. I may just remove them. I'm not too sure yet. So not too sure what to do with that. Bring the that wall forward. Finalize the wall on the other side as well. And then on the very top, where all that stuff is, put basically a roof. And I have no idea what that roof's going to look like. That's something I need to think about. I haven't really done much sort of work on roofs that actually aren't just a flat roof. There are lots of materials inside, lots of options for architecture in here in terms of steel beams and pillars and where is it? Foundations. You can do ramps and corners and inverted ramps and quarter pipes. So there's lots of options for essentially using these materials to build sloped roofs and stuff like that. And I want to have a roof that basically goes over this entire building. Building is there all the way down to the far end, enclose this entire top section in a roof, and then obviously probably put lights inside that and stuff like that. So that's the remaining part of this build. As I said, that's where I'm going to route those other options through here and then route them along through there. All this will go that we're seeing in front of us. Basically everything here will basically go for the most part. And so I'm not sure. I might leave it as it is. I'm not too sure. But that is the main focus of my build at the moment, is to just get this. The function's good. Now I've got to get the form set up and get it into a nice looking sort of nice looking building. And then the next part will be to look at redoing more of those, relaying out the main factory. Plus, depending on what needs to be done with that part of the factory, part of the map that's going to be redesigned by the developers, is dealing with that. Will take priority when that comes in. Once I know what the scope of that's going to be, they'll take priority over everything else, because obviously I'm going to be losing lots of output from that process when that kicks off. So I've got to deal with that pretty quickly. So that basically sums up the current state. So again, the main process I'm doing at the moment is just redesigning the factory floor to make it a bit more easier to navigate and understand where stuff is coming to and from, and then building more of an actual factory around it. In other words, walls and roofs and stuff like that. Is the main goal at the moment, is the main focus of what I'm doing. And that's what the series of videos will go through. Each video is going to be highly edited. They're not going to be like this one. This is just an introduction to show you what I've currently got and what my plans are. So for example, sorry about that, the suit's running out of power too much. Hopefully get to the top before it runs out. I can. This whole platform goes right through to the far end and just joins up here. So again, I'm going to reroute a lot of this stuff and probably remove a lot of this. Things were built in a requirement as required at the moment, and factory layouts change. So all of these go straight through. They do this pattern where they hook, they hook right. Then it does it again further down. So a lot of this stuff will be streamlined, neatened up, and stuff like that, which is the main sort of goal at the moment. I'm not doing anything. I'm not making anything new because I don't need to. As you can see, at the top right, there's nothing to do for the next phase of the space elevator. So it is just redesigning the factory, making things laid out a bit better, make things easy to track and follow, and if I need to make something new in the future, it'll be easy enough to hopefully do that with a better laid out factory. Alright, that will wrap up this introductory video to Solar Factory. Hopefully the next couple of videos will go through a lot of what I've just talked about in terms of the next stage of this redevelopment of this factory, and you'll stick with me through the whole process. So thanks again for watching this longer video than I thought, so apologies for that. The next videos will be hopefully about half this length, if not shorter, and will hopefully be every couple of weeks, but real life will dictate that more than anything. Thanks for watching. Thank you.